Hello, world, and welcome back to Timber's Trains. Today's episode is about set number, I think it's 30584. Now, it's not exactly a set. It's not like a full Lego product that comes in a box and has instructions and stuff and a brick separator. It's just one of those little bags that you find. As you can see, the entire set is pretty much revealed just by looking at the cover of the instructions. No more is needed. But I thought it would be fun to have an episode about it anyway, in which I try to give it a nice little upgrade. As you can see, it's a 2-stud gauge engine, and those are typically what you find inside of the little bags. Now, Lego does actually make 2-stud gauge rail, but it's really rare, hard to find, and usually results in incomplete layouts. Not to mention, motorizing is a nightmare. I have looked at videos on the internet, and that's nothing I want to do. Even though you can save a lot of money by just having little push-around layout of 2-stud gauge, I prefer my 4-stud gauge. So, I'm going to upgrade this little train to be a 4-stud gauge train instead of a 2-stud gauge. But rather than rebuilding the locomotive, because on another Lego set I have, I rebuilt the locomotive to just be a full-blown 4-stud gauge engine, and I gotta say I wasn't exactly happy with the results. This train, I'm just going to do a flat-out re-gauging and try to make it somewhat compatible with Lego minifigures. Before I go breaking this thing apart, let's take a closer look at the engine. As you can see, it already has a narrow gauge feel to it. This doesn't just look like a miniature engine scaled down for 2-stud gauge. It already has a very heavy, narrow gauge vibe, and I want to feed into that. Its coupling system is going to have to go. I'm not a fan of the ball and socket, but I actually do like the look of this little train. It has a kind of charm to it. I don't want to lose that when I upscale it a bit. Its freight cargo is, of course, 2 silly little presents on a flatbed. That kind of stuff drives me crazy in television, but in the form of a playset, of course, it's just too functional not to expect companies to do stuff like that. So I'm going to keep it as is and try to just upgrade it. And of course, it has a carriage, which is an interesting choice. I obviously am going to have to upgrade that somehow to fit a Lego minifigure inside, so we'll see if that's possible. And right now, even if you break a figure in half and leave his legs out, there's no way to fit him in there, so I'll have to address that, and hopefully I can fit the entire figurine without having to break his legs off. Now then, I've gotten pretty good at video editing, but I'm not the best when it comes to being a cameraman. I'm not certain what to film all the time, so let's just go ahead and jump to the part where I actually start upgrading the engine, and keep this as short an episode as possible. Now then. These are 2-stud wide, and as I said, I don't have any 2-stud wide rail. I have 4-stud wide hooked together to make 2-stud wide rail. So these aren't going to work. Any old fan of Lego Loco will understand immediately as to why I enjoy this case. This is where I keep all my train stuff. Also, these couplers aren't going to work at all. In typical narrow gauge fashion, this entire little doodah is about the same size as an actual train wheel for Lego, but that just makes it more adorable. I originally wanted to show the build process of this little engine, but I was watching anime while building it, and I don't feel like taking it all the way apart and rebuilding it again. The flashing lights from the TV were flashing against the various Lego bricks, and it gave me a kind of seizure-y vibe that I didn't want to put on YouTube. But here's the finished car. it maintains the spirit of what the original car was while still really looking like a little narrow gauge car, like something that doesn't belong on the main line. But it is standard gauge as far as Lego goes. And, maintaining that good Christmas vibe, it'll have two little Lego presents, the original cargo, sitting right in the middle of it. In essence, it's the same exact car, just a little bit upscaled. With me skipping all of the narrow gauge build, the only thing left to do is actually show off the finished train. So, here it is. I like it because it feels a lot like a narrow gauge engine that has been re-gauged for rails it was never intended to originally run on, and I have a soft spot for any funny looking trains that are no longer as they should be. Now then, with me shaking the camera as much as I physically can, let's take a look at the engine. I tried to keep all the color palette the same, and I tried to also stick with a very narrow gauge feel rather than a miniature full-sized engine, so I couldn't add coupling rods, couldn't figure out how to do that and make them move, or even attach them properly so they wouldn't fall off, but part of the charm of this engine is how simplistic it is. I have a cab that I'm fairly certain will fit a minifig. All of the colors are in the right spots. I went ahead and replaced the bars on the side of the engine with a little fence. I figured that just felt like it worked better, especially for a narrow gauge engine where you really don't need like big bars to hang onto it. You just need a little fence to stop you from slipping off or stopping tools from falling on the ground. Here, of course, we have the flat wagon, which I've added two little red plates so that other engines and stuff and rolling stock can, you know, not bump into it if you're moving down the line. And it maintains a lot of the same feel as the original packet. And I've also added a passenger wagon at the back, or this might be a brake van. I'm not entirely certain what they were going for, but either way, I tried to maintain the original vibe, the simple quaintness of the whole thing. And I even added a little bit of asymmetry to it, so it looks like there's some kind of footplate for maybe a little Lego man to stand on. And of course I changed around its coupling system to be a little bit more substantial. The couples actually add a significant amount of length to this little train. And with the unveiling of the finished product, I'd say we're done. It was a very short episode, but this is a very short train. If you ever see one of these little packs in the store, I actually suggest you pick them up. They are very small trains, but once you give them a little tiny upgrade, it's surprising how much you fall in love with them. And for now, I'm gonna have to say, bye-bye!